Alright, so episode 3 of Obi Wan. We ended with the Darth Vader cliffhanger last time, so you knew he was going to show up in this one. Unfortunately, this episode is at best, because so much shit just doesn't make sense. And it really seems like the Obi Wan show hates Obi Wan Kenobi at this point, so let's just get into it. So Obi Wan is trying to talk to Qui-Gon, Vader is getting suited up. Reva reports to Vader, and he offers her the position of Grand Inquisitor if she succeeds in catching Obi-Wan, and death if she fails. They ride the cargo ship to a place called Mabuto, which is an Empire-run mining system. Leia mentions trusting the con artist's coordinates, and Obi-Wan snaps at her, and he has a hallucination and gets nervous. Reva talks to the other two Inquisitors, and I think the Sombrero Inquisitor might be the worst actor in the show. Could be the direction they gave him, but everything he says is like cartoonishly over the top all the time. It's like you need to know he's evil by the way he's talking. So Reva orders them to send out probes along the route where this cargo ship went. Obi-Wan and Leia go to the coordinates and no one's there, and he's being all pissy to Leia. So he's pretty much just a non-stop asshole this entire time. She tries to hitchhike, and he tells her not to talk at all. Leia just does whatever she fucking wants in the show. So she leads the way, she hitchhikes, she talks to a guy, she decides everything, and Obi-Wan is just getting dragged around by the fucking nose. The vehicle they hitchhike in is working for the Empire, and some stormtroopers hitch a ride along the way, which, thank God, the show keeps making every villain incompetent. Otherwise, they might have gotten caught here. They literally say in this truck ride that they're looking for a Jedi, and the Jedi they're looking for is Obi-Wan, and they're sitting next to him and don't realize it's him. And they have an elaborate story that Leia made up on the spot. Obviously, she made it up because she does everything. And Obi-Wan fucks it up, obviously, because everything bad is his fault. And calls her Leia instead of Luma. And he literally cannot do anything right in his own show, and that just keeps going from this fucking point on. So he fucks it up. It doesn't really matter because the stormtroopers believe that it was just a fuck up, so they leave. Leia asks Obi-Wan if he's her dad, and he says no. And we finally get a little bit of character stuff from Obi-Wan, where he talks about having flashes of his own mom and dad, and he thinks that he had a little brother, but he ended up with his new family, which were the Jedi. And it's like a nice little moment between him and Leia. So they get to a checkpoint where stormtroopers are waiting, and a probe is about to scan Obi-Wan's face. And we get a good little action sequence here where he pulls out his pistol and quickly shoots the probe, and then like 4 or 5 stormtroopers. And, you know, it's good action. Everything makes sense. He's very fast, and no one does anything extremely stupid that I could see at least. But that gets ruined like 10 seconds later. So another truck of troopers shows up, but it's 3 stormtroopers, and Obi-Wan just surrenders immediately for no reason. And really the reason is so that we can find out that the female officer, double agent lady, is on his side, and she shoots him all in the back. We get a little cut of the Inquisitors reporting to Vader that they found Obi-Wan. So we find out that the double agent chick is named Tarla, and they have an underground railroad essentially that they call the Path for anti-Empire people. And Leia and Obi-Wan have a little scene where she says she misses home. And this would have made a lot more fucking sense right after she'd been kidnapped, instead of her, you know, acting like a jackass and running from Obi-Wan and bossing him around over and over. And now suddenly she's sad. Obi-Wan seems confused why Tarla is risking everything to help people. And this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about when I say the show seems like it hates Obi-Wan. Like, he was a Jedi. He dedicated his entire life to helping people. Even if he doesn't feel proud of it anymore or, you know, have his regrets or whatever, that still completely goes against his personality. And he's not a fucking alien that he just doesn't understand why you would help people. It's absurd. So she opens the underground escape tunnel, and Obi-Wan has a panic attack because Vader showed up. I'm not sure why he can sense Vader, but Vader can't sense him right away. And this is by far the best part of the show so far, because Vader just starts walking down the street, force choking random people to death to try to lure Obi-Wan out. Obi-Wan sees him and runs away, which makes sense, I guess. But then he runs right into Vader, and they do the thing where, you know, it's all dark and we see his red lightsaber at night. And it's a cool shot, but I have no idea how he got ahead of Obi-Wan, like ahead of where Obi-Wan ran to and was just waiting for him. And this is kind of a non-stop issue for the rest of this episode. So Obi-Wan pulls his lightsaber out, but he doesn't ignite it, and he runs away. And then as he's running, he finally ignites it. And they do the really stupid thing here that like horror movies do, where Obi-Wan is running through this quarry, and Vader is just walking, but Obi-Wan can't get away from him. And I get that they want it to be like, look how scary Vader is, but it's just fucking stupid. So Obi-Wan says, "What have you become?" And Vader says, "I am what you made me." And this is like one of those lines that's supposed to sound cool, but doesn't really make any sense. Like Obi-Wan literally did everything he could to keep Anakin from turning to the dark side. And Anakin was a grown fucking man and made a choice. I don't really understand this show doing this thing where it blames Obi-Wan for Anakin turning evil. Like Owen did it, Vader did it, Obi-Wan clearly feels guilty over it. And him feeling guilty for it happening makes sense because, he replaced Qui-Gon as Anakin's master. But there's a difference in feeling guilty over something and taking blame for it. Like, you can feel guilty, but the responsibility lies with Anakin and, Palpatine for manipulating him. It wasn't Obi-Wan's fault that he turned to the dark side. And you'd think that with, 10 years to reflect, Obi-Wan would have accepted this by now. I mean, the entire thing about the Jedi is, to control your emotions and use good judgment. And also compassion, which Obi-Wan has none of in this show. So the Inquisitors are sweeping the town, and Reva finds the Underground Railroad building. And a little bit later on, she finds the tunnel entrance. Leia tells Tarla to go help Obi-Wan, and she eventually says okay. Tarla tells Leia, just follow the tunnel to the end, and there'll be somebody there waiting for you. And Leia hugs her and shows more respect for Tarla in this scene than she has for Obi-Wan at any fucking point in this show, who she just walks all over and bosses around and blames for stuff. Obi-Wan finally tries to fight Vader when he can't get away anymore, and Vader just completely overwhelms him. And I guess they're just going to retcon that when I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master line from A New Hope. I mean, he makes Obi-Wan look like a kid who's never even seen a lightsaber before in this fight. And this is kind of the entire problem with the general premise of this show. If Obi-Wan's only mission in life was to hide and wait until Luke was old enough to train, then he should be practicing with the Force and studying the ways of the Jedi in preparation for that, so that he's actually capable of training Luke when he says he's ready. Now, he just looks like a useless old asshole, and even if he fights Vader again later this season, are we really supposed to believe that he's improved that much in such a short period of time? To go from not being able to use the Force at all and looking like Darth Vader's bitch to being on equal footing with him? Like, Vader has been... Anakin was more talented than Obi-Wan to begin with. And he's been fighting consecutively for 10 years and honing his craft and presumably getting more powerful, while Obi-Wan has just been letting himself rot. So he can't really make up that discrepancy in what I'm assuming the short amount of time that this show is going to last in the timeline. So Obi-Wan gets his ass kicked for a bit, and then he runs again, and he eventually gets cornered. Vader force chokes him and knocks some stuff onto the ground, some kind of rock or chemical or something, and uses his lightsaber to ignite a fire, and then he tosses Obi-Wan onto the fire to get his revenge. And all of this I'm completely fine with, like Darth Vader wanting revenge and being evil, whatever. Tarla shows up on top of one of these quarry piles that's overlooking their fight. No clue how her and Reva didn't pass each other in the tunnel. No clue how she caught up so fast. No clue how she knew where to go at all. But fuck it, she needs to be there, so she is. Vader puts the fire out with the Force, and the stormtroopers are going to take Obi-Wan for Vader to torture him. And Tarla shoots some electric thing that reignites the fire. And even though Vader was literally just Force choking him from this distance, and he put out this exact same fire with the Force, he just stands there and lets him get away. A cargo droid that we saw earlier in the show comes and grabs Obi-Wan, and he escapes. It's a good thing that Leia told Tarla to go save Obi-Wan, otherwise the show would be over and he would just be getting tortured. So we get one more, logistical what the fuck happened to end the show, and that's Leia gets to the end of the single tunnel, and Reva is waiting for her. How did she get past Leia without seeing her? How did she get past Tarla without seeing her? Who the fuck knows? We want the cool shot of Reva standing over a dead body waiting for Leia. So that's it for episode 3. Obviously, they want us to have the feeling of, oh, how's Leia going to get out of this to get away from Reva? I'm assuming next episode is when we'll get the reveal that Reva was one of the younglings in Order 66 in the first scene, and she isn't actually bad in hunting Obi-Wan. She admires him or something. Probably not admires because this show hates Obi-Wan, but who knows? Maybe she personally blames him for what happened. I don't know. I think that's going to be her in the Order 66 scene from the first episode, and she's not going to do any harm to Leia. I just can't stand what this show has done to Obi-Wan. Like, if he's going to be depressed and out of touch with the Force, and that whole thing, this show should probably have taken place like a year after episode 3, not 10 years after, and he's suddenly getting inspired by Leia and Tarla, and he'll probably get inspired by Reva before the show's over to go back to being a Jedi. And it just makes him seem like a completely useless piece of shit. And this, we have to have the women save the man shit is so predictable. The plot was obvious before the season even started. As soon as we saw Reva in the preview, you knew it was coming. I also think that might be all we get for Vader versus Obi-Wan, because I don't really see how they could do it again and it make any sense. But to be fair, making sense hasn't really mattered that much in this show, so they'll probably just do it anyway. But really what the show should have been was probably Obi-Wan doing low-level shit on Tatooine to make money. Maybe there's people that are putting Luke in danger somehow and he has to save them. But we had to get everything we could out of the nostalgia. So I guess that's it for this one. We'll see where the show goes to start the second half of the season. I can only assume Obi-Wan is going to be a useless sack of shit until Reva and Leia show him otherwise. Probably in episode 6, I don't know. This is it. Another show that hates the main fucking character. Alright, see ya.